Hi, I'm Melinda, and recently I found myself in a very controversial and vulnerable position because suddenly my dad stopped being just my parent. He suddenly became my classmate, and I will definitely never forget this experience. I'm ready to share with you this unusual story. I don't know about you, but my best friend is my dad. Well, I also have a normal relationship with my mom, but she is stricter and more demanding. Well, Dad is completely different. You can listen to rock music and ride a bike or go skateboarding. I just adore him and can't even imagine what I would do without him. It's very cool when Dad is on the same page with you. And he is always ready to cover up for me, protecting me from my mom in case I suddenly risk falling into her disfavor. For example, if my father notices that I'm late and I don't arrive home on time, he'll simply take my mother for a walk or to a restaurant to divert her attention away from me and allow me to go home undetected. If you only knew how many similar ruses we managed to concoct. I'm hoping Mom is completely unaware of the situation, but there are still times when my father and I have arguments. This happens infrequently, but we usually reach an agreement fast. Normally we have opposing viewpoints on cleaning, cooking, and of course, studying. By the way, I believe many teenagers are familiar with these issues. Tell me in the comments if you have a disagreement with your parents about the same or other issues. So once, my dad and I got to such a point where our conflict lasted a long time. Well, we couldn't find a way to agree. And of course, this was all about studying. It's just that at some moment, I stopped paying due attention to learning in the volleyball classes after lessons as well as my extra math classes. As a result, my performance in all the spheres greatly deteriorated. This may have made Dad really upset, and he kept trying to persuade me to pull myself together and get back to the usual rhythm. I tried, honestly, but nothing worked for me. Well, I found a boyfriend who I really liked, and I wanted to spend time with him as long as possible. His name is Derek, and he's new in our class. So, when he appeared, then priorities changed and studying faded into the background. Despite this, Dad tried his hardest to show me that if one tries hard enough, one can get a piece of every pie. But it was just a case of laziness on my part. In the end, I informed him it wasn't possible. Dad couldn't take it any longer and declared that he would soon show me that he was correct. But I had no idea how he was going to do it at the time. I was stunned when I entered the classroom a few days following this talk. My classmates informed me that there was a new student in the class and that I would be seated next to him. So, you figured out who this is, haven't you? Yes, it was my father. He gave me a cheerful wave and added, "Hi, I'm Peter, damn it." I had no idea what to expect and had no idea how to react. On the one hand, I wanted to ask him, what the hell? But on the other hand, my classmates didn't know who we were to each other, and it was better not to give myself away. So I silently walked into the classroom and sat down next to my new desk mate. At the very first break, the guys began to whisper to each other about the elderly new student and frankly were poking fun at him. Dad hadn't heard this, but I think even if he had, he wouldn't have cared. But I was really upset with it, and I was afraid everyone would learn the truth, and they would just laugh at me and call me Daddy's daughter. The first day was very stressful, and I hoped that after the lesson, everything would be over and Dad would go home. But that's not the case. He ended up enrolling in volleyball classes alongside me. What does it all mean, Dad? Stop the circus right now and go home. I said something right away, but he just laughed and said he couldn't miss lessons, so he'd have to go to volleyball class instead. Oh, yes. Derek approached me right before class, and like everyone else, he had no idea who our new student was. So we inquired as to what this elderly youngster required of me. We just seemed to know each other. As a result, he made the decision to straighten things out, but I assured him that we were only discussing homework at the time. And after Derek, my father approached me again, asking who he was and why he was acting so strangely with his daughter. Ugh, damn it. When the volleyball class began, I was very worried about the fact that, because of my dad, I would again find myself in an unpleasant situation, and it turned out this was for a reason. At some point, he was so excited about playing that he passed the ball to me, saying, "Catch it, daughter." At that moment, I almost melted into the ground, and my classmates began to laugh at us and asked if he wanted to adopt our whole class. And if you think that after the volleyball, Dad went home, then they would stop doing it. But no, he went to math classes as well, and again sat down at the same desk with me, driving Derek away because of this. They had a conflict during the break. Derek said that I was his girlfriend and that he shouldn't dare approach me. Dad looked at me surprisingly, saying I didn't even know she was dating someone. In short, he behaved in a very stupid manner. We had very serious conversations every now and then when putting me up in front of other guys at home. I screamed that my father had no right to interfere in my life with such an obnoxious manner and humiliate me in front of my classmates. He said that I kept Derek's presence from him, which is why he had to keep a closer eye on me. In short, I recognized that during the conversation that we would not be able to reach an agreement this time, so I decided to do something crazy. The next day, I came to school and told all my classmates that I wanted to introduce my dad to them and pointed to him. Apparently, my dad was not ready for such a twist, and the guys didn't believe me at first. Then they realized that I wasn't lying. Then some of them began to laugh, while others, on the contrary, said that I was lucky to have such a dad. And I felt relieved and calm because everyone knew the truth, and I had nothing to fear. Since that day, Dad openly urged me on in my studies and sometimes helped me with the difficult subjects. After lessons, he hurried me up and told me to go to volleyball classes faster, and after volleyball, he told me to hurry up and not to be late for my extra math class. Yes, during the breaks, he did not let me talk to Derek at all, saying that I could actually go with him after all the lessons. When there would be no need to rush anywhere, in some sense, he was right. I really managed to do everything, and Dad wasn't even against my relationship with Derek. I never thought before that it was possible to organize one's day in such a wise and efficient manner. Well, my father is amazing, and I quickly understood that I was delighted he chose to be my classmate. But I was really curious about the answer to the question, when will it end? And Dad informed me that there were still a few days left for him to be by my side and help me solidify the results. We suddenly heard the alarm when there was only 1 day left before graduation in an English class. The teacher and all of the students were agitated, and we smelt something burning. Yes, there was a fire because smoke emerged from behind the door a minute later. Everyone was yelling and fussing, and I was pressed up against my father, pleading him to do something. In truth, I never doubted him for a second, and he immediately regained control of the situation. First of all, he loudly told everyone to keep silent and sit down in their places. Then he asked Derek to approach him and ordered him to collect all the backpacks from the guys and quickly take everything out of them. We didn't understand what it was for, but he obeyed him. Meanwhile, the classroom was filling with smoke more and more, and it was very difficult to control oneself. When all the backpacks were collected, Dad and Derek began to link their straps together. Then Dad opened the window and told Derek to climb down. He really didn't want to do this and wanted someone else to be first. But Dad was unshakable, so Derek had no choice with bated breath. Everyone was waiting for him to be on the ground, and in a couple of minutes, he successfully descended. Then Dad told us to do the same as Derek, one after another, and start climbing down. Some of my students screamed in terror that they were terrified of heights, while others said that their hands were weak and that they would fall. But Dad assured us that the window was our only way out, and that we had to save ourselves if we wanted to survive. The guys then began to descend one by one as the smoke grew thicker, further exacerbating the situation. One by one, the boys descended. It was both frightening and creepy, and the atmosphere was heavy. The smoke was already making its way into the lungs of those who stayed in the classroom, and every minute counted. Olivia, who was among the last of us, clung to the window frame and started sobbing, saying that she was afraid and would rather die in a fire than hang at such a height. Then Dad told me to get down and he would stay with Olivia. I really didn't want to leave my dad, but I had to save myself. So I climbed down. When I was on the ground, smoke was vigorously pouring out of our window, so I just started sobbing, realizing that my dad might not manage to get out in time. And my classmates froze in horror and looked up. We were startled to see Olivia begin climbing down slowly and nervously, racing up. My father emerged from a large cloud of smoke as soon as she reached the ground, shouting to her. Then I burst out laughing, and my classmates cheered him on. Dad was coughing fiercely, and I could see him clinging to life by the skin of his teeth. But in the end, he did it. On that day, he became a hero at our school, with my peers proclaiming that I had the best father on the planet. In truth, I never had any doubts about it. It's wonderful that he became my classmate for a short time and gave us all a new lease on life. As for Dad, he approved of Derek and said that I made an excellent choice. Would you like to sit at the same desk with your dad? Share your answers in the comments. Click on the thumbs up button below this video and subscribe to our channel. Wow, such muscles. Oh, I think I'm in love with this handsome guy. I was staring at Stan and falling in love with him more and more every minute. Do you think I'm No, everything is even much worse. My name is Hillary, and this is my story about how I met a guy for the first time in my life. Yes, you heard it right. Recently, I have seen a guy for the first time. And by the way, I am already 16 years old. It all started in my early childhood when my mother and I were left alone because our father had abandoned us. However, his leaving was not the worst experience for our family for many years. I had been bedridden when I was born. My bones were so frail, the doctors explained, that every step would be incredibly painful for me, and any accident could be fatal. However, the physicians promised my mother that I could still be cured thanks to modern drugs and therapy. However, this would take a long time. As a result, I would spend most of my time in bed, unable to go. We didn't have television or internet at home because we lived in a tiny town and didn't have much money. A few books and connection with my mother and girlfriends provided all of my enjoyment. The girls would tell me a lot of interesting things about life, which I thought I could never have. They talked about schools, teachers, and boys. The boys interested me most of all. All the boys are so nasty. Yes, you are so lucky, Hillary, that you don't have to communicate with them. My girlfriends would start talking about their ex-boyfriends, about how they had treated them so badly, and what the girls had to go through. These tales both impressed and terrified me, that I didn't always want to communicate with people of the opposing gender. But that would be short-lived. This was my monotonous existence. I had been living in solitude until the age of 16 and knew very little about the outside world, even after my bones had become much stronger and I was able to walk properly. Mom was still apprehensive about allowing me to leave the house, so she kept me locked up for a while more, until one day she came to me with wonderful news. We're relocating to the city, and I'll be relocated to my current position. Wow, great! I was hoping that my life in the city would change dramatically, and I was not wrong. I really wanted to go to school in order to meet new friends and finally start communicating with boys. What if they are not that nasty? There must be some really good guys. However, my mother quickly brought me back down to earth. Dear, you have poor health. I don't think you should go to school yet. But I want to. You are going to study at home. It will be better this way. Moreover, your knowledge level doesn't match your age. You'll be the center of attention. Is that something you truly desire? That was correct. I didn't consider myself to be significantly less intelligent than my contemporaries. It's not a huge deal. This is a simple problem to solve. Mrs. Brett, my instructor, visited me every day. We had been studying for quite some time. I had a lot of fun studying and learning new things. However, I continued to feel isolated from my friends due to a lack of communication. Mom started earning more in her new job, and we were able to afford our first mobile phones and the internet. That was the only way I could stay in touch with my old acquaintances in my hometown. But it was all wrong. I really wanted to go out somewhere to meet peers to find myself a boyfriend. One day, my wish came true. Mrs. Britt called me one day and said that she had broken her leg. Therefore, for a long time, she will not be able to come and teach me. But you can come to me in order to not get behind. I would be happy. I just need to talk to my mother. I had to persuade my mother for a long time to let me go, as she was afraid that something would happen to me. For example, a serious injury that, in her opinion, would almost certainly result in death. It's all a load of crap. I can't spend the rest of my life shut up at home. What's to stop you? Yes, you certainly can. Enough, Mama. That's already a lot. I had actually yelled at her for the first time. We'd been bickering for quite some time, but in the end, my mother gave up and allowed me to attend Mrs. Britt's classes every day. And who knew it would turn my life around when I fell in love with Mrs. Britt's son, Stan. At first, we would just exchange glances, then started talking a little, and then we added each other as friends on social networks and began chatting night after night. Stan was not only handsome, but he was also an incredibly interesting guy. He knew so much, and compared to him, I felt so narrow-minded after all. I was just studying the 4th grade program with his mother. But Stan didn't mind this. After all, he knew very well about my illness. Oh, how exciting it was to chat with a guy. Every time Stan wrote to me, I had goosebumps running all over my body, and my heart began to beat faster. That's how much I liked him. I did not hide my relationship from my mother and told her everything. But her reaction just killed me. What do you think about studying? Not about boys. She was outraged. One does not exclude the other. It does exclude more than. Boys are just trouble. Think about your father. He left us. You were just unlucky. Stan is not like that. He's good. Yes, of course. They are all like that at first. Hillary, I'm opposed to it. And this is not love. You've never seen a boy before. That's why you're so taken aback. Mom even took my phone away from me so I couldn't contact Stan. It's a good thing that I didn't tell her he was Mrs. Britt's son, since I didn't have time to inform her. As a result, we'd be able to see each other during my lessons and then go for a walk afterwards. I informed him that my mother was opposed to our relationship and said that it was all because of my father. Stan had stated that he would not abandon me in any situation and had given me his old phone so that we could continue to communicate. However, nothing good came of it because one day I accidentally left my phone on the table during the cleaning. My mother found it, read our messages, and understood everything. Oh, how furious she was. She forbade me to go to Mrs. Brett and declined her services to find another teacher. I was very hurt and offended. She took away my communication with the boy I liked so much. She wanted me to always sit at home and not mix with any guys at all, just because of her bad experience. I decided not to give up and run away from home at night down a drain pipe in order to spend time with Stan. He used to wait for me behind the trees, and we could walk all night. However, we were apprehended by the cops one day. They took me home and handed me over to my mother with the instructions to keep a watch on me. Isn't she too young for a night out? Was she on her own? My mom was taken aback by my actions. No, with a guy who is also a minor. You will be given a warning the first time, but if we catch her again, we will be compelled to take action. I was terrified of being alone with my mother at the time. I could see she was also enraged, but I had no idea how severely I would be punished. Mom raged at me, and the bars on my windows were already put the next day. It was like I was locked up in a jail where it was impossible to escape. Mom was constantly checking on me, didn't give me my phone, so at home I was just dying of boredom. I didn't even have anyone to talk to, as I was not eager to communicate with my mother. There was no other people in my prison cell. I felt so lonely that I was crying all the time. I miss Stan so much. A couple of times I could see him coming to my windows, but unfortunately there was no way he could help me escape. Stupid bars as stupid principles of my mom. It was all driving me nuts. Then I decided to take extreme measures. I swung my arm and slammed my palm hard on the table. Even though my bones had become much stronger, they were still frail, and the pain rushed through my entire body, almost knocking me out. My wrist appeared to be broken. Oh my God, we're heading to the hospital right now. Mom came running to my shouts. She became pale and started fussing. I grabbed her phone and texted that I will be in the hospital while she was getting ready, evidently on adrenaline. Perhaps this is how we were able to see each other. I knew this wasn't a typical fracture and that I'd have to spend time in the hospital, which is exactly what happened. Stan brought flowers and fruits to me. How did you pull this off? He inquired, a pitying expression on his face. It's all for us, I replied. I tried very hard to hit harder. So you have broken your wrist on purpose? Yes, just because I wanted to see you. Tears welled up in my eyes. At first, he scolded me for being so irresponsible about my health. Then he hugged me and said that he would visit me every day, and he kept his word, came to visit me every evening. He was even studying with me, and everything was fine. Until one day, my mother caught him in my room. Get out of here, she cried out. He will stay, I shouted back. Mom didn't beat around the bush any longer. She grabbed his standing arm, let him out of the room, and slammed the door right in front of his face. I started crying from helplessness and anger. You are not going to stop us from seeing each other. Mom was deafeningly quiet. She was enraged. For a few minutes, we sat in deathly quiet. It would have been preferable if she hadn't shown up. She completely ruined everything. Before you leave, that was quickly stated by my mother, I'd recognize that this was not love. I didn't give her statements much thought till I arrived home. Mom asked her friend and her son Peter to dinner to commemorate my return from the hospital. Peter kept trying to strike up conversation with me as we were all seated at the table. To me, he was absolutely uninteresting. I had to admit that he was a handsome man, but he was also really boring. I didn't pay attention to him because I was thinking about Stan. So that's how our dinner went. When the guests left, my mother asked me how I felt about talking with Peter. I replied that he was boring and annoying. Apparently, my answer surprised my mother. Well, of course she didn't believe my feelings, thinking they were not real, that it was just an excitement from meeting a guy. Mom was confused and said that she had a lot to think about, and after a few days, she made me very happy by offering to invite us to a visit. I want to get to know this guy better. Luckily, despite my mom's antics, the hospital staff agreed. However, at the table, she blurted out that before Stan, I had not seen any guys and did not communicate with them in any way. It surprised him a lot, and I was burning with shame because I really didn't want to know about it. I understand what you're getting at, he said and smiled. but I can give you my word that I will never offend Hillary and never leave her." He took my hand. Mom, after hearing this, thought about something for a minute and then replied that she would still be on alert. She gave her consent to our relationship, and now we are very happy together. I am thinking all the time about how great it is that I have not listened to my friends and instead believe that Stan is not like all the other guys. And at what age did you start communicating with guys? Post 2 replies in the comments section, click like, and share this video with your friends.